Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for our Tuesday webinars. This is a series of short 30-minute sessions on a variety of different topics related to student loan debt and how to minimize that debt. And we are here today with Hannah Achtor. Hannah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Uh, as she said, I'm Hannah Achtor. I'm the manager of training and compliance with Ascendium Education Solutions. And before I was at Ascendium Education Solutions, same company, different name. We were Great Lakes Higher Education. And so I worked for a student loan servicer for a number of years and a student loan guarantor for a number of years. And all said and done, when you total it up, I've been working on the student loan repayment side of things for 20 plus years. Um, so that's what I'm here to share is student loan repayment tips.
Great. I will, if you want to advance to the next slide, I'll just share a little bit about who we are as an organization, so that you know what other kinds of resources and tips that we provide. So we are the Wisconsin Coalition on Student Debt, otherwise known as DebtSmarts. That's our website address. We're a statewide nonprofit organization, and we're committed to helping students minimize their debt and for borrowers to avoid unmanageable. So while what we have prominently in our name is about student loan debt, we actually focus on resources and help for students throughout their journey. So before college, what that looks like is free FAFSA help and tips to complete FAFSA. We sponsor a Money Smart contest, and this is for graduating high school seniors, and that will open up in February. Very popular. That offers 15 $1,000 scholarships to the winners. During college, again, we focus on strategies for finding those ongoing scholarships and for budgeting, and then other help to students to understand how to minimize their debt and stay on track during their college years. And then after college, we have a student loan helpline that's both a call line and an email help, and additional resources, including things like today's webinar.
So with that, I think I'm going to take over.
Yeah.
Carol, what I'd ask is just monitor the chat. Let me know if there are questions that pop up. And for those who've joined us, it's informal. Ask a question as you have it, because if you wait until the end, we may run out of time or you may forget your question. So I like to keep it informal and I welcome questions, comments as we move throughout. As you can see on the screen, what I plan to cover, it's Student Loan Repayment 101. So we're going to talk about how one determines their repayment goals. Because once you know your goals, it's going to be a lot easier to pick the path right for you. And then we'll talk about learning loan details, the options for each loan, and how to ensure one doesn't fall behind, because that's really what we want to help people with, managing repayment so they don't fall behind. So determining your repayment goals, we'll start there. When I counsel student loan borrowers, and I've been counseling student loan borrowers for years, a lot of times they're looking for the one magic plan. Like, what is the best option? And there isn't a best option. Like, it's not a one size fits all where I can just tell them, pick this one and you're going to be good. Really, to help somebody determine the best path forward for them with student loan repayment is to know their goal. And once they determine what their goal is, then they can find the right path for them. And on the screen are the most common goals I see for student loan repayment. Having the lowest monthly payment. There is no shame in making that the goal, because ultimately the most important part is not to fall behind on somebody's student loan. And so if having the lowest monthly payment keeps you from stressing out, keeps you from falling behind, then that's a fine goal. I'll be honest, when I left school, that was my goal. I wanted a little bit more wiggle room in the budget. This way I didn't have to stress out. You can also always pay extra and over the monthly payment. So I received a lower monthly payment and then I could pay extra and I felt better about it. However, that's me. Other people may have a different goal. So I use my husband as an example anytime I do these presentations. If you had asked him his goal for student loan repayment, granted he didn't have his own student loans, I did, but his goal would have been to minimize overall costs. My husband never wants to pay more than he has to for anything. And he's going to look at the overall interest and the final sticker price. And if that was the goal for student loan repayment, there might be a different path to take. Maybe a higher monthly payment would be involved, but there's a way to minimize overall costs. Somebody else may want to just get rid of the loan as fast as possible. And a lot of times that will minimize costs too, but their whole goal is just maybe get rid of the student loan. They need it done. And again, there's a different path for that. And the last more common goal that I see, I mean, there's probably others that I don't have on the screen, but the more common goal I see is making use of public service loan forgiveness. That's a very popular program for student loan borrowers in the federal student loan program. Uh, Today, it's estimated that 1 in 4 Americans work for qualifying employers. So it's something a lot of student loan borrowers can take advantage of. However, it has its own qualifications. So if somebody wants to make that their goal, that also will determine which repayment plans they select, because there's very specific qualifications for that. So those are the first things that I always recommend, is determine what the goal is. And then know there's a pro and con to every goal. So for me, having the lowest monthly payment, like I said, it leaves more room for other expenses in the monthly budget. Loved that. It may cost more in the long run. I'm a dreamer. I was more interested in today than what's happening down the road, but that's something to know, is it may cost more in the long run. If the goal is minimizing overall costs, hey, that's great, because it can help with long-term savings. You know, if you're trying to make sure that you pay the least in the long run so you can allocate that money to something else, fantastic goal. It may mean a higher monthly payment. Same thing with paying the loan off as fast as possible. It may mean a higher monthly payment, but eliminating debt quicker is never bad. And then lastly, I have making use of public service loan forgiveness. Again, results in eliminating debt faster, because public service loan forgiveness is a 10-year program. And after 10 years of payments, the rest of the loan balance is forgiven. But like I mentioned, it requires specific repayment plans, so borrowers just have to follow very specific steps if that is their goal. So that was the first section. Student loan repayment 101, know your goals. Then the next thing, once a person figures out what their goal is, they need to find their loan details. Because there's a lot of different options out there in the student loan industry, but they don't all work for everybody. Different types of loans can do different types of things. So first things first, where are all the student loans? Anytime I include this in a presentation, it seems like the most basic starting point. And I think sometimes we're like, well, duh. However, you don't know how many student loan borrowers I talk to who have no clue where their loans are, or they've completely lost track of some. So to find all federal student loans, which is mainly what I'm concentrating on today, is federal student loan repayment, to find all federal student loans at studentaid.gov. A person has to log in, and if they need their FSA ID to log in, if they forgot their FSA ID or they never got one because they took out loans back when I went to school and that wasn't a thing, you can create them right there at studentaid.gov. So you create a login, or you log in if you already have one. From there, it's going to retrieve all federal student loan data. It'll show who holds the loan, how much the loan is, what school it was for. Everything is right there. Private loans, they're a whole different beast, and I am not an expert in private loans. I can tell you a little bit, but ultimately it's going to vary by the loan holder. You know, there are different lenders in the private loan arena, and they have different terms, different options. I can say, to track down private student loans, annualcreditreport.com. There's a ton of data out there. That's, you know, everything a person takes out in their credit history can be found, at least within the last 7 years, I think. So they can go in there, they can find the student loan debt, the private student loan debt, who holds it, and then from there they can figure out how to contact them if they've lost that information. So find all the student loans, where are they? And then learn the loan details. So once you find them, are they federal or private? Private student loans aren't going to have as many options. So that's just one thing to be aware of. And again, if they're private student loans, contact the loan holder, the lender, and find out what options are available, because They just vary so much. Federal student loans have set program options, and most of them are detailed at studentaid.gov. However, even within the federal program, there are different loan types that can do different things. So first, a person wants to find out, is their loan federal or private? And then if it is federal, what type of loan is it? There are direct subsidized loans, direct unsubsidized loans. There are older loans from the Federal Family Education Loan Program. There are Perkins loans. Uh, there's Graduate Plus loans. There's Parent Plus loans. There's consolidation loans. I could go on for a while. There's a lot of different loan types. So find out what program, find out what loan type. At studentaid.gov, it's going to tell you who the loan holder or the servicer is. The servicer is the person who one would make payments to. It gives the loan balance. It gives the interest rate. It'll give the monthly payment and the due date amount if a loan is in repayment status. So this is information you can find, should be available on your loans. And again, if it's not repayment status, those last two will not be available. Other statuses it could be in deferment, forbearance, in school status, even default. These two would not be available. But get the loan details. Once you know your goals, once you know where your loans are, what your loan details are, then you can apply those to the available options. And there's been a lot of changes when it comes to available options. So we'll talk about what's current, what's going, what's coming. So lots of things to cover. And again, if you have any questions, just get them out there. One thing is I never expect anybody to remember every detail I cover because the student loan industry, it's complex. There's a lot of different options out there. When we talk about deferments and forbearances, there's probably 20 plus deferments and forbearances that a person could have applied to their loans, all if you meet very set criteria. For repayment plans, right now there's about 8 different repayment plans out there. Really hard for the average person to remember all of those things. So there's 2 main things I tell everybody to remember as they leave school. The first one's on the top here. You can change your monthly payment amount at any time. A person is not stuck with the first monthly payment they receive. And I think that message is so important because I remember back when I left school 20 plus years ago, I just assumed I'd get that first bill in the mail and I had no other option than to pay it. I didn't know that wasn't the case until I started working at a student loan company. And lots of borrowers they're in similar shoes as to what I was in. The next thing is there are options to postpone monthly payments altogether. So if a person cannot change their monthly payment to an amount they can afford, they cannot find something affordable, life happened, car broke down, had a cut in income, there are options to postpone payments altogether. So they can just put them on hold for a set period of time. We'll talk about both of these things, but this slide is what I want people to remember. Because later you could call in and ask for help. You can go to a website and ask for help. Just know there are options. But let's look at the specific ones. Hopefully you remember some of them as we go through this. First, what is a repayment plan? We're going to talk about the various repayment plans available. So I just want to break it down and make it a little bit more simple in case somebody's not heard of this before. A repayment plan is an agreement between the borrower and their lender on how much the borrower will pay each month and how many monthly payments it'll take to pay off the loan. So basically the repayment plan is just the terms of the loan. What's the monthly payment going to be? How long are you going to have the loan for? Think about it that way. I mean, there's other things to terms like interest rates, stuff like that, but the repayment plan, what's the monthly payment going to be? How long are you going to have the loan for? In the federal student loan world, currently today, there are all these repayment plans available. I put them into 2 groups. On the left-hand side are the non-income based repayment plans. And I believe at studentaid.gov, one of the more common websites to break all this down, they refer to them as fixed repayment plans. The first one listed, I'll go over it, but get details in a little bit, but you have standard, then you have graduated, extended, and extended graduated. Those are all under the fixed. The next column over are income-driven repayment plans. Just like they sound, the monthly payment is determined by the income. And these are really popular right now. and for good reason, because they tend to accommodate a lot of people. They personalize the repayment plan to the situation. They're also getting a ton of press because of litigation. There have been more lawsuits surrounding these plans than the others. So you can see here I have an asterisk next to saving on a valuable education. That one is on hold right now due to litigation, and student loan borrowers cannot apply for it. I'll talk about it a little bit because some borrowers are already in it, but new ones can't apply for it. So let's break this down a little further. The non-income plans. So I put them all on the same slide here. First, you have standard, and this is the one student loan borrowers are automatically placed on when they leave school. They just assume the standard plan is the best plan. So they give student loan borrowers 10 years to pay back the monthly, or excuse me, to pay back the loan, and the monthly payment never changes. So if they can stay on this plan, it's kind of easy. You just have the same monthly payment every month, and then after 10 years, the loan's paid off. The problem with the standard plan is it often has a high monthly payment, and borrowers suffer from sticker shock when they get that first bill in the mail. And if they don't remember that they have other options, it might be when they turn and decide to avoid their student loan. So that's why it's so important to stress you can change your monthly payment. But if a person can afford standard, it tends to be the cheapest in the long run because it gets rid of the loan the fastest. There's graduated. This one also gets rid of the loan in 10 years. So going back to what the goal is, this is another one that can get rid of the loan in 10 years. I always tell people to proceed with caution when it comes to a graduated repayment plan because the monthly payment increases every 2 years. And then when it gets close to year 10, that can be a pretty high monthly payment to ensure it gets paid off in 10 years. Nobody should choose the graduated plan unless they have their own plan for what's going to change down the road, allowing for them to afford a higher monthly payment. Otherwise, they might be choosing something that's comfortable today, but making it very hard on themselves down the road to afford that payment as it grows. So graduated is an option, but only good for people who know something's changing. Like maybe they're going to have a higher salary in a couple of years, or maybe they're going to pay off some other debt in a couple of years, allowing them to concentrate on this one. There's extended. This is what I did when I left school because there weren't the income-driven repayment plans available at the time. So they give you a longer amount of time to pay back your loan. So I went from 10 years to 20. It didn't cut my payment completely in half, but almost in half. And that just made me feel a lot better about it. However, I received a statement in the mail as soon as I did this saying that, I'm now in an extended plan and my overall costs in the long run would be so much money. And it actually detailed out how much more I would be spending if I stuck with extended. I still wanted a comfortable monthly payment. I wasn't concerned about it. And then I just decided I'd pay extra every month to try to help with that interest that was driving up that overall cost. So the non-income based plans, these are also good for people who have maybe higher incomes and they prefer not to do a plan based on their income. So there's various reasons why somebody may choose one of these, get rid of the loan faster, or potentially they just prefer not to have a plan based on income. Things to keep in mind with those, though, is they could be a little more expensive. The income-driven repayment plans are supposed to be personalized to the situation. So they allow monthly payments to be set based on income and family size. Plans may consider a borrower's partial financial hardship to be eligible. And that has the word may in there very intentionally because some plans still require a partial financial hardship, many do not. But essentially what that means is just there's an income cap. A person could earn too much money to get into some of these plans. Balances may be forgiven if the loans are not repaid in full at the end of the repayment period. Because the monthly payments are tailored to the situation, sometimes they can be extremely low. Sometimes the monthly payments are $10 a month, even $0 a month, and that makes it very hard to pay the loan balance back. So what happens in these programs is after so much time, somewhere usually between 10 and 25 years, depending on the plan, whatever the borrower didn't pay gets forgiven. In 2026, though, that will start to become taxable income when it gets forgiven. So that's something people should keep in mind. If in an income-driven repayment plan, that counts towards public service loan forgiveness. So when I said know your goal, if the goal is public service loan forgiveness, you need to be in an income-driven repayment plan. That's a requirement of the program. And then you need to recertify your income every year. So if you're in this every year, they change your monthly payment based on your circumstances. And what they do is they look back at the last year's income. So they'll take tax returns and base the monthly payment on that last year's income. So here are the specific income-driven repayment plans. The first one listed is income-based repayment. And as I go through this, you're going to notice it has the least bullets. That does not make it the least important. It's actually the most stable. That's why it has the least bullets, is it's really not had a lot going on. It hasn't been sued, it's not subject to litigation, and it's not anticipated to be going away anytime soon. So IBR is pretty solid. It came out in 2009. It was passed by Congress, which makes it more stable, and it's available to a lot of student loan borrowers. So you can see it's available to both borrowers in the direct loan program as well as the FFEL program. It does exclude Parent Plus loans, but there is a way for Parent Plus loans to get in. It's kind of complicated. I think they have to consolidate first, then choose the ICR plan and make a payment there, and then switch to IBR. So all I would say is Parent Plus loans, do some research on this first. IBR no longer requires partial financial hardship. This actually changed with the one big beautiful bill that passed this July, and it went into effect immediately. I think because this is the most stable plan, they're hoping more people join this plan, and they got rid of the partial financial hardship, which was eliminating some people from being able to select it. Again, there's no longer an income cap. That's what that partial financial hardship means. There's no longer an income cap for IBR, making it easier for anybody to get into. Now, IBR sets the repayment period based on the age of the loan. So a person took out the loan prior to 2014, they'd have 25 years to pay back the loan before the rest of the balance would be forgiven. If they took it out before or after 2014, then it's only 20 years. And then if they still have a balance left at year 20, 25, the rest gets forgiven, but not everybody's going to make year 20 or 25. Because the way these income-driven repayment plans work is the monthly payment goes up or down based on income. Some people's income will increase, and they'll be able to just pay back the loan before they get to year 20 or 25. But IBR is definitely worth checking out. It's very stable, and it is open to many student loan borrowers. Pay as you earn works in a very similar fashion to IBR. However, it's only available for direct loans, and it completely excludes Parent Plus loans. There's no extra steps to take or anything like that. They just can't get in. It does still require a PFH, meaning there is still an income cap, but the repayment period is only 20 years. And right now, even though somebody can select this plan and get into it, forgiveness is on hold due to litigation. So if they get to year 20, it just sits until the outcome of lawsuits. Borrowers who are in this plan must transition to what they're calling the new repayment assistance plan by July of 2028. So as a result of the one big beautiful bill, there are new income-driven repayment plans coming. In fact, just this one, the repayment assistance plan, this is going to replace them all, they say. It will not be available until July of 2026, and borrowers and pay-as-you-earn will have to transition to that new plan by 2028. They're not saying that about IBR. Borrowers and IBR can stay there. Saving on a Valuable Education is on hold right now. Nobody can apply for it. It is subject to lawsuits. We don't know if it's going to survive the lawsuits. Borrowers who are enrolled in this prior to the lawsuits were put into a forbearance. And as of August 1st of this year, interest is collecting during that forbearance. So their loan could be growing while they're sitting there waiting for the outcome. They were encouraged to choose a new repayment plan and get out of the forbearance. But for those who didn't choose a new repayment plan, they're just in that forbearance. This is another one, though, where when they passed the one big beautiful bill, they specifically put in there that borrowers enrolled in SAVE will need to transition to the repayment assistance plan by July of 2028. So this means that even if SAVE survives the current court battles it's facing, all the enrolled borrowers were still going to have to transition to this new repayment assistance plan that's coming out. So this one is not going to be around for very much longer. ICR is similar. This is one of the oldest ones. It's been around since the early 90s, I believe, mid 90s. It's only available for direct loans, and Parent Plus loans can get into this one if they consolidate first. Monthly payments tend to be higher than the other IDR plans because the formula is a little different. The repayment period is 25 years, but again, forgiveness is on hold right now. So if a person gets to year 25, they just have to wait to determine the outcome of these court cases. And enrolled borrowers are going to have to transition to the new repayment assistance plan by July of 28. So they won't be able to stay in this one forever. Now, I have these here just to kind of show you, do a little comparison of how repayment plans look for people. In this example, you can see Standard has this person getting rid of the loan the fastest, but their monthly payment is $847. However, they will pay the least in interest in the long run. You can kind of see the variations. The extended plan will have them pay the most interest in the long run, but a fixed payment that stays relatively low, depends on your point of view. And at the bottom are the income-driven repayment plans. Here's another one, and you can see the details of the person at the top. So a little bit different here, different income, different family size, pretty high monthly payment under Standard. And they'll actually pay the least interest under ICR and get rid of the loan the fastest, but have the highest monthly payment. So this is where somebody has to decide what matters most. What's the goal? For this one, again, the loan debt, the income, both a little bit lower. Family size 3, filing as head of household. Standard has a higher monthly payment. When you get down to the income-driven repayment plans, especially IBR or pay, the monthly payment's quite low, and they may actually see forgiveness at the end. And forgiveness is not on hold for IBR, so that's another one where, again, it's very stable. For the sake of time, I'll move through a little quicker. To change repayment plans, person can go to studentaid.gov. They have a loan simulator tool that allows them to do that side-by-side comparison I just showed, and then they can apply right from there. If a person can't afford monthly payments altogether, they have the option to use a deferment or a forbearance. Deferments have certain specific criteria, meaning you have to qualify for them. But if you do, they're an entitlement, and they can put a hold on your loan for a set period of time, usually 6 to 12 months. I think everybody's familiar with in-school deferments. That would be an example. Forbearances have less criteria to them, and they can put a hold on the account for 6 to 12 months, or usually no more than 12 months at a time. But typically, more interest is collecting because the government never helps out with the interest, and there's a limit to how many forbearances you can get. As I mentioned, changes are coming. There's going to be 2 new repayment plans starting in 2026, in July of 2026, but those are only for new student loan borrowers who take out student loans after July of 2026. To keep an eye on those, you go to studentaid.gov, and that will give you more information as they're available. Never want anybody to fall behind. We do these webinars because it's so important to stay on top of your student loans. If a person ends up defaulting, these loans do not go away. Federal student loans, they're not forgotten. They don't disappear after 7 years like your average debt. And a lot of negative consequences can occur if somebody doesn't take care of them. But ideally, out of today's session, you learned there's a lot of options available to help, to keep somebody from going from delinquent, to keep somebody from going into default. So a person just has to call their student loan servicer to ask for help, or go to studentaid.gov to learn what their options are. So with all the changes that are happening, studentaid.gov always has the information you need, or you can call your student loan servicer anytime and ask for help. And I think that's it. And I didn't really see any questions. How about you,
Yeah.
Carol?
Yeah, so there is a question
Okay,
in the
great.
chat, and it's a question about PSLF, and whether there are going to be changes to the qualifying employers. We
Timely
know there aren't
question,
any
because I
changes.
just
Yes,
read the new
right.
rule today.
Yeah.
There will be changes to qualifying employers as of July 1st, 2026. And what it is they're adding a caveat that will exclude employer from being eligible to be considered qualifying if that employer is determined to engage in substantial illegal activities, or illegal activities of a substantial purpose. I can't remember exactly how they're phrasing it. But if an organization And the things they listed were things like assisting with illegal immigration or other crimes, things like that. But if an organization is determined to do something that the Department of Education thinks is of a substantial illegal purpose, they will exclude that employer from qualifying for PSLF. At this point in time, there are no employers who have been excluded. We don't have a list. None of this starts until July of 2026, but they just published the final rule this week. So anybody who wants to can go out and take a look. They do have a process in place for not only determining how an employer would be marked as ineligible, but they also have a process in place for how an employer can appeal that and try to get it back. So changes are coming, but they're not in effect yet.
And I'll just add that just like Hannah mentioned about some of the loan programs, there is litigation around this because
Yes.
of the fuzziness of how they're going to apply those rules to what kinds of public service organizations. So there was a lawsuit filed yesterday with among a number of, I think, states and organizations. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. And that's just how the student loan industry has rolled lately. Something comes out one day and a lawsuit is filed the next. So we'll see. Any
All
other
right.
questions out there?
Okay, I don't see other questions. What I'd like to just remind folks is that this is how you can get in touch with us with your questions or to access resources. We will be sharing out the recording from today to everyone who registered. And then that recording is actually also going to be available and posted on the DebtSmarts website for viewing at any time, and also on our YouTube channel. And then Hannah, if you want to just go to the next slide, please. And we are running these webinars frequently to address issues as we see them coming up. And Hannah briefly mentioned issues around avoiding default and delinquency. And next week's webinar is actually focusing specifically on that. So we'll be doing a deeper dive next week on how to resolve loan default. All right.
That's it.
Thanks everyone for joining, and look for the recording in your inbox shortly after this. And I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.